On March 19, 23, a county medical examiner in western Pennsylvania exhumed a body he had autopsied himself 11 months earlier, and he found a wound on her that had not been there the first time.
Wait, he missed it?
A single needle puncture behind her left ear hidden by the hairline, about the width of a sewing pin, and the only reason anyone went looking was that the dead woman's niece, an ICU nurse 2 states away, would not stop calling his office.
One pinhole. That's the whole case.
That's the whole case. Welcome back to the Cold File. I'm Marcus Reed.
And I'm Dr. Christy Hart. Call me Christy. I've read this file twice now, and the thing that keeps catching me is the binder. He kept a binder, Marcus. Tabbed dividers. Medication lists in his own handwriting, like a sales ledger.
You came in this morning carrying that binder photocopy under your arm like it owed you money.
It does owe me something. I want to walk people through the room first. That church basement, the coffee urn, the chairs in a circle, because that room is the engine of this whole story.
Then let's go there. Bricker Falls, Pennsylvania. Rust Belt town, about 11,000 people, 30 miles east of Pittsburgh. The steel fastener plant closed in 2004, and what's left of the place runs on its churches, its volunteer fire company, and a single funeral home that has buried 3 generations of the same families.
Krause Memorial.
Krause Memorial. Founded in 1948 by a man named Walter Krause, passed to his son Edmund, passed in 2001 to his grandson Wendell Krause, 54 years old at the time of arrest. The only funeral home in the county. If you died in Bricker Falls between 1948 and 24, Krause buried you.
That is a monopoly built on grief.
It's a monopoly built on grief, and that's important, because the second thing Wendell Krause founded, in 2005, was a Tuesday night grief support group out of the basement of Bricker Falls Methodist. He called it Quiet Hours.
Quiet Hours. The name alone.
He ran it for 19 years. Free of charge. Coffee, cookies, folding chairs. A pastor would come and go, but Wendell was always there. He took notes. He kept an intake binder. He had every member fill out what he called a trusted contact form.
Define trusted contact form.
Name, date of birth, current medications, the names of any family members who lived out of state. And this is the part that makes me put the file down, beneficiary information.
He was asking grieving widows for their beneficiary information in a church basement on a Tuesday night.
He was, and nobody pushed back. Because he was the funeral director. Because he was the man who had buried their husbands. Because in a town of 11,000 people, Wendell Krause was the person you went to when you didn't know what to do next.
Okay, so before we even get to the murders, set me up on the central question. What is the listener supposed to be solving with us tonight?
The central question is this. Between August 2019 and June 22, 5 widows from the Quiet Hours group died inside their own homes in Bricker Falls. 5, every one of them ruled natural causes. Heart failure, stroke, cardiac arrest, hospice. The local funeral home buried 4 of them. Guess which one? And the 5th was cremated.
Wendell wrote the obituaries?
He wrote every single obituary, free of charge, as what he described to the weekly paper as a community service.
Hold that thread, we're coming back to it.
We are. So 5 widows, 4 years, all natural causes. The question we're going to answer tonight is, who killed them, and how did nobody notice for almost half a decade?
Who done it?
Who done it? And before the case broke open, the state police had 3 serious people on the suspect board. One of them was a woman named Tessa Wendt who they almost destroyed. We're going to walk through every name on that board.
But first, Marlene.
First, Marlene. Marlene Hostler. 71 years old at the time of death. Born and raised in Bricker Falls. Worked 34 years as the librarian at Bricker Falls Elementary. Retired in 2015. Married to a man named Rich Hostler. He ran the parts counter at the Chevy dealer in town for 40 years. They were married for 47 of those.
No kids?
No kids. They tried. Didn't happen. Marlene poured it into the school. Generations of kids in that town learned to read on her carpet. Her niece Erin Hostler, told the state police that Marlene used to do voices when she read aloud. A different voice for every animal.
Oh, that's a librarian I want to know.
Rich died of pancreatic cancer in August of 21. 8 months before Marlene's death. He was sick for about a year before that. She nursed him at home until the last 6 weeks.
So she's already exhausted before the grief starts.
Right. She buries Rich, comes home to an empty house, and according to Erin, she went very quiet for about 3 months. Wouldn't answer the phone. Wouldn't answer the door for the church ladies. Erin drove down from Rochester at Thanksgiving and said she'd lost 12 pounds.
12 pounds in 3 months on a 71-year-old frame.
That's the picture. Erin starts pushing, therapy, a support group, anything. And Marlene calls her in early December and says, I went to a thing at the church, a grief group. The man who runs it was so kind to me at Rich's funeral. I think I'm going to keep going.
And the man who was so kind at the funeral was
Wendell Krause.
Marcus. Walk me through what those first months look like for her in the group, because this is where the predator does his targeting.
Quiet hours met Tuesday nights, 7 to 8:30, in the Methodist basement. Anywhere from 6 to 14 members on a given week, almost all women, almost all over 60, coffee urn going the whole time, and Christy, every single session was recorded. Wendell told the group it was for transcription notes in case anyone wanted to remember what they'd said.
Wait, he recorded them.
He recorded all of them, 19 years of tapes. We're going to come back to those tapes. They are central to this case.
He's running surveillance on grieving widows.
He is running surveillance on grieving widows under the cover of pastoral care. And on a recording from January of 22, Marlene tells the group that she's been thinking about getting back into things. She wants to refinish a dresser of her mother's. She wants to plant tomatoes in the spring. She mentions, in passing, that her late husband was a coin collector.
Specifically,
Silver dollars. And she says, on tape, that she's hidden them somewhere in the house because she's worried about break-ins. And she laughs and says, I won't even tell my niece where they are. They're in the heating vent.
she told a room full of people.
She told a room she trusted. And the man holding the recorder was making a list.
Okay, hold on the silver dollars. Take me to the body.
April 15th, 22. Marlene has missed 2 phone calls with Erin. That's unusual. They had a standing Sunday call. Erin calls a neighbor woman named Hazel Brubaker, lived 2 doors down, and asks her to walk over and check.
And Hazel finds her.
Hazel finds her in the recliner, television on low, a coffee cup on the side table, gone cold. Marlene appears to have died peacefully in her sleep. Hazel calls 911. The dispatcher logs it as a probable natural death of an elderly woman with a recent cardiac history.
What recent cardiac history?
That is an excellent question. And the answer is, there isn't one. Marlene's primary care doctor had her on a low-dose blood pressure medication, and that was it. Her last physical 4 months earlier described her as in good health for her age. But in Bricker Falls, the dispatcher worked off whatever the responding officer told him, and the responding officer worked off whatever he saw in front of him, which was a 71-year-old widow in a recliner.
So nobody questions it.
Nobody questions it. The body goes to Dr. Howard Lemke, county medical examiner, 63 years old, has been doing this job for 19 years, runs a 2-coroner office out of a basement in the courthouse. He performs what he later called a routine external exam.
External only.
External only. No autopsy. He wrote cardiac arrest on the death certificate, signed it, and sent the body back to Krause Memorial to be embalmed.
To the killer.
To the killer, who buried her after writing her obituary, and then went home that night and put a small object on a shelf in his office.
Marcus. The shelf.
We are getting to the shelf. Hold on the shelf.
Okay, but the listener needs to know, when we say a small object.
We mean a personal item taken from each of his victims. He kept 23 of them.
23.
Including a plush gray elephant with a frayed left ear that had belonged to Marlene Hostler since she was 4 years old.
Hold on, that's the same elephant.
You're getting ahead. I want the listener to sit with the obituary first. Keep that elephant in your pocket. We are coming back to it.
Okay, pocketed. Tell me about the obituary.
The Bricker Falls Weekly ran Marlene's obituary on April 19th, 22. 3 columns. A photograph of her in a floral cardigan. Wendell wrote it free of charge, as he did for all his clients, and the obituary mentioned by name several specific personal details. Her favorite hymn at her wedding, the carpet color in her library room at the elementary school, and, quote, the worn gray elephant she had carried since she was a 4-year-old at her grandmother's farm in Indiana, and which still sat on the dresser beside her bed.
How did Wendell Krause know that?
That is the question Erin Hostler asked when she read the obituary on a connecting flight in Detroit. She read it twice, she put the paper down, and she called the funeral home.
What did Erin say?
She said, and this is from her own statement, Mr. Krause, I'm Erin Hostler, Marlene's niece. I'm flying down for the service. Thank you for the obituary. It was beautiful. I had one question. The bit about the elephant, did my aunt tell you that?
And he said,
oh, the elephant was on the dresser when I came to do the home pickup. I asked her sister, meaning Marlene's sister, Erin's mother, and she told me the story.
Her mother had told him the story.
Her mother had been dead for 11 years.
Marcus.
Erin sat with that on the plane the whole way down. She didn't say anything to him at the funeral. She didn't make a scene. She buried her aunt. She went back to Rochester. And then for the next 11 months, she called the medical examiner's office every 2 weeks.
God bless an ICU nurse with a question.
God bless an ICU nurse who knows what a real cardiac event looks like and isn't shy about saying so. Erin's argument to Dr. Lemke was very specific. She said, "My aunt had no cardiac history. She had no shortness of breath the week before she died. I spoke to her on the phone 4 days before." She was talking about furniture stripper. People who are about to die of cardiac arrest are not generally talking about furniture stripper.
That's a profile point. Acute cardiac events tend to have prodromal symptoms in older adults. Fatigue, chest pressure, shortness of breath. Family members notice in retrospect. Erin wasn't seeing it in retrospect because it wasn't there.
And Lemke, to his credit, and we'll come back to him too because he is one of the suspects we have to walk through, eventually agreed to an exhumation. March 19th, 23. 3 in the morning, light rain. The ground at Bricker Falls Memorial Cemetery is still half frozen. Dr. Lemke is on site, Erin is on site, a backhoe operator named Donnie Schuler is on site, and Donnie told the state police later that nobody said a word for the entire hour it took to bring the casket up.
What does she look like 11 months later?
Embalmed. Decently preserved. Krause had done the embalming himself. Lemke takes the body back to the courthouse basement. He performs a full autopsy this time, and he goes looking, specifically behind the ears and along the hairline, because Erin had asked him to.
Why there?
Because Erin works in an ICU and she knows that injection sites get hidden, and because she had also remembered, and this is another detail, that her aunt had asked her 6 months before her death why she was bruising behind her ear after a quiet hour's meeting.
Marcus.
Erin had told her, "Oh, you probably scratched yourself, because what else do you tell your 71-year-old aunt?" And she had been carrying that conversation around for a year.
So Lemke goes looking, and he finds it. Single needle puncture behind the left ear, about a centimeter into the hairline.
He almost misses it the second time. Then he runs vitreous humor, that's the fluid in the eye, for potassium, and the level comes back significantly elevated, beyond what postmortem decomposition can explain.
Potassium chloride.
Potassium chloride, injected at a hairline site, stops the heart. In a healthy adult, it would leave traces a coroner would pick up immediately. In a 71-year-old widow, signed off as cardiac arrest after an external exam, invisible.
That is not a method you stumble into, Marcus.
No, it is not. That is a method somebody who has handled a lot of dead bodies has thought about.
Okay, the case is open. Pennsylvania State Police, May 23. Trooper Lisa Mendelson catches it.
Mendelson is 38 years old, 6 years in major crimes. Solid. She walks into a situation where one woman has been definitively murdered, and the immediate question becomes, was Marlene the only one?
How does she get to the other 4?
Erin gives her the support group. Erin has been sitting on this for almost a year. She gives Mendelson the names of the 4 other women from Quiet Hours who had died in the prior 3 years. Doris Albright, Eugenia Polk, Ruth Connaught, Carol May Tilley, and Mendelson pulls their death certificates.
All natural causes.
All natural causes. Heart, stroke, hospice, heart, all in their own homes. 3 of them autopsied externally, only 1. Ruth Connaught not autopsied at all because she died in hospice care.
What's the average rate of natural deaths in a Bricker Falls grief support group?
That is exactly the question Mendelson asked. She pulled 5 years of attendance lists, or what she could find of them, and the baseline death rate among women over 65 in that demographic, for that group size, would predict roughly 1 death per 18 months. They had 5 in 46 months.
That's not a cluster. That's a harvest.
That's a harvest. Mendelson orders 4 more exhumations.
All 4 come back the same.
All 4. Same hairline puncture, same elevated vitreous potassium. Identical signature. By summer of 23, Mendelson is looking at 5 homicides committed by the same person, all members of the same Tuesday night support group.
So now we get to the suspect board.
Now we get to the suspect board. And Christy, this is where the case nearly went off the rails.
Walk me through who's on the board.
At the top of the board, the obvious one, somebody with medical access, somebody who can get potassium chloride, knows how to inject it, has hands-on contact with elderly patients in their homes. Mendelson's first move, completely standard, is to pull the home health and visiting nurse rosters for all 5 women.
And one name jumps out.
One name jumps out, Tessa Wendt, 41 years old, home health aide for a regional agency called Allegheny Comfort Care. She had worked rotations for 2 of the 5, Doris Albright and Carol May Tilley.
What else does she have on her?
A misdemeanor from 2017, diverting hydrocodone from a hospice patient. The patient was already deceased. She took the leftover bottles. She did 6 months probation, kept her AIDS certification with a probationary mark.
So on paper,
On paper, she is a textbook angel of death candidate. Medical access, drug diversion history, personal contact with 2 of the victims, working class woman, recently divorced, financial pressure. Mendelssohn's lieutenant is leaning on the suspect hard.
let me push back on this for a second, Marcus, because the profile actually doesn't fit.
Make the case.
Angel of death offenders are almost always killing for control or for the gratification of the rescue fantasy. They typically kill in institutional settings where they can manage the response. They escalate. They don't pick 5 women across 4 years in 5 different houses with no medical bystander present. That's not the pattern.
And there's no financial gain attached to her.
None. None of these women left her anything. So even if she had access, she has no motive that maps to the killings.
Which is exactly what the state police started running into. They built the case for 8 months. They subpoenaed her timeline, her bank records, her shift logs, and they could not place her at 3 of the 5 deaths. She was in Florida visiting her mother during one of them.
But they didn't drop her right away.
They did not. August 23, somebody in the lieutenant's office leaks her name to the Bricker Falls Weekly as a, quote, person of interest. She loses her job within 48 hours. The agency suspends her certification. She moves out of her apartment because reporters are knocking on the door.
That is a life burned down on the basis of a profile that didn't fit.
And while the state police are spending 8 months on Tessa Wendt, somebody else is moving evidence around in the background.
He's destroying the sign-in sheets.
In September of 23, Wendell Krause goes into the Methodist Church on a Saturday morning with the pastor's permission. He was a board member, and he removes what he calls outdated administrative files from the basement office, including specifically the original paper sign-in sheets from 19 years of quiet hours meetings.
Pastor lets him do it.
Pastor lets him do it, because Wendell has been managing those records for 19 years. The pastor has no idea the state police are looking at the group. Krause takes the boxes back to the funeral home and runs them through a commercial shredder. Hours of work.
So when the state police finally turn their attention to quiet hours,
There is no membership list. There is no record of who attended which meeting. The pastor has rough current attendance in his head. That's it.
but the absence itself is information.
The absence is information. Mendelssohn notices in November of 23 that the only paper sign-in sheets she can locate are photocopies in one elderly member's kitchen drawer.
Wait, why did this woman have photocopies?
Tax purposes. Her name was Estelle Barbarossa. She was 81 years old, a retired bookkeeper, and she had been writing off her mileage to and from the support group as a charitable transportation deduction for 14 years. Her accountant had told her decades ago to keep paper proof of attendance, so every Tuesday night, on the way out, she had photocopied the sign-in sheet at the church secretary's machine and slipped it in her kitchen drawer.
Marcus, I love her.
Estelle Barbarossa is a hero of this case. Mendelssohn has those photocopies in her hands by Thanksgiving 23, and what do they show her?
They show her the full membership.
They show her the full membership. They show her every meeting all 5 victims attended, going back 4 years. And they show her one name that appears at every single meeting any of them ever attended.
Wendell.
Wendell Krause, sign-in number 1, ink pen, top of every sheet, 19 years.
Okay, now I want to talk about Dr. Lemke, because in a whodunit, you can't skip him.
You cannot skip him. Dr. Howard Lemke is on the suspect board for about 3 weeks in the summer of 23.
On what basis?
On the basis that he had personally cleared 4 of the 5 deaths as natural causes. If you're sitting in the state police barracks looking at a corkboard with 5 obituaries on it, and 1 signature on every death certificate, you have to ask the question,
Did he do it?
did he do it? And the answer turns out to be no, but the answer to why he missed it is its own scandal.
2 coroner office.
2 coroner office. Lemke and 1 assistant, they handled in 240 deaths between them. Cardiac arrest in an elderly widow at home is, statistically, the most common cause of death they certified. They almost never autopsied because the families almost never asked.
And the funeral home picks up the body before any second look is even possible.
Krause Memorial picks up the body. Krause embalms the body. By the time anyone could ask a question, the chemical evidence has been disturbed by the embalming process. Krause knew that. Krause counted on that.
So Lemke is a system failure, not a co-conspirator.
A system failure. And to his credit, when Aaron pushed, he listened. He authorized the exhumation, he found the puncture, he ran the vitreous potassium, the man broke open his own mistake. There are coroners who would have closed ranks.
Okay, so Lemke comes off the board. Tessa's fading. Who's left?
Who's left? Family members of the victims, briefly. Mendelssohn did due diligence on every adult relative who would have stood to inherit. None of them inherited anything significant from any of the five. The estates went elsewhere.
Where, Marcus?
Where indeed? Mendelssohn subpoenaed the wills of all five women in December of 23, and every one of them had been updated within 18 months of the woman's death. 5 updates, 5 appointments, all at the same notary, a small firm in Allentown called Pinkerton and Vance Legal Services, about 3 hours from Bricker Falls.
Why Allentown?
Because nobody in Bricker Falls would have notarized those updates. They were all done by an associate notary named Beverly Pinkerton, late 70s, hard of hearing, ran the front desk 3 days a week. The state police interviewed her in January 24 and she remembered every one of them. She remembered specifically that they were always driven up by a tall man in a black pickup truck who waited in the lobby with a thermos of coffee.
Wendell Krause.
Wendell Krause drove every one of those women 3 hours to Allentown to update her will. Each update named him as either personal representative, meaning executor, or as a small bequest beneficiary. A few $1,000s here, a piece of jewelry there, a coin collection in one case.
Plus prepaid funeral contracts.
Every one of the 5 signed a prepaid funeral contract with Krause Memorial in the 4 months before her death. Total, across the 5, about $86,000.
And the bequests?
The bequests, plus joint accounts he had himself added to, plus a few small life insurance policies he had been named on, netted him about $254,000 more. $340,000 total across 5 women.
He killed 5 women for $340,000.
He killed 5 women for the price of a modest house.
God, okay. That's the motive, plain on the table. Money. Specifically a small-town funeral director whose business had been declining for a decade, looking at 3 working-class estates and saying, that's mine.
Krause Memorial's tax filings showed the business losing about $40,000 a year from 2015 on. He had a mortgage on the building. He had 2 adult children in college. He had a wife who didn't work. The pressure was real.
Lots of small business owners have that pressure and don't murder 5 people, Marcus.
No, they don't, which is why I want you to walk us through what's actually wrong with him.
Okay, so here is what I see when I read this file. Wendell Krause is not an angel of death offender despite the medical access. He is a financially motivated serial offender, that's the surface. But the structure of how he kills tells you something deeper, and the trophy shelf tells you everything.
Walk me through the trophy shelf.
23 items in a locked oak cabinet in his private office, each one tagged in his own handwriting with the victim's initials and a date. Marcus, the date is not the date of death.
What's the date?
In every case where Mendelssohn could match it, it was the date of the woman's first quiet hours meeting.
He was dating them from when he picked them.
That is not a financial offender. That is a man who is keeping a souvenir from the moment he chose his victim. Months, sometimes years before he killed her. The killing is the closing of a process he started the night he watched her sit down in a folding chair.
And the items themselves.
A wedding ring from Doris Albright, a handwritten recipe card from Eugenia Polk, pierogi recipe in her mother's handwriting, a reading glasses case from Ruth Connaught with her initials embossed, a small brooch from Carol May Tilley, and item number 19 on the inventory, a plush gray elephant with a frayed left ear, tagged MH, dated December 7th, 21.
December 7th, 21. That's the night Marlene attended her first quiet hours meeting.
That's the night she walked into that basement looking for help, and Wendell Krause looked at her and made a list.
And Christy, this is the moment we have to play it back for the listener, the obituary.
Yeah, we mentioned earlier that Wendell wrote every obituary as a community service, and that Marlene's obituary mentioned the gray elephant she had carried since she was 4 years old.
A detail Aaron said only Marlene's late husband had ever known. Not Marlene's sister, who was dead, like Wendell falsely claimed she'd told him. Just Rich. And Rich was dead too.
So how did Wendell know?
He knew because he had taken the elephant off the dresser the night he killed her, and he had stood in her empty bedroom holding it, and then he had gone back to his office and written about it in the newspaper.
He wasn't writing obituaries, he was writing about himself.
He was writing about himself. The obituaries were the trophy he could publish, the shelf was the trophy he could hold, and the recordings.
The recordings.
The recordings were where he relived choosing them.
Marcus, I want to play one. There is one tape in evidence I cannot stop thinking about.
January 11th, 22. Quiet hour session, 6 members in the room. Wendell at the head of the circle recording. Marlene Hostler is talking.
Rich used to say I'd given that elephant a whole biography. Her name's Penelope. She was 4 when I was 4. She slept on my pillow until I got married, and then she sat on the dresser. Rich was the only one I told about the silver dollars in the vent. He laughed at me. He said, Marlene, who's gonna come looking in your house?
God.
That tape was in Wendell's office. He had it labeled by date in a binder.
He played it back. Of course he played it back.
We don't know how often, but forensic accounting on the cabinet showed the binders were thumb-worn at specific dates, the dates of the killings.
He listened to her describe her stuffed elephant before he went to her house and killed her and took it.
Yes,
Okay, I need a second.
take it.
All right. So we have method, we have motive, we have the mechanism, the support group as the screening tool, the notary as the legal lock-in, the funeral home as the disposal mechanism, the recordings as the souvenir. What we don't have yet in the case, and I want to walk through this, is how Mendelsohn actually arrests him.
April 24. Mendelsohn serves a subpoena on the Quiet Hours records, what's left of them, and on Krauss Memorial. She specifically requests the funeral home's surveillance footage from the prep room, the front office, and the parking lot, going back 5 years.
He had cameras in his own funeral home?
He had cameras for insurance purposes. He had backed up about 14 months of footage to a hard drive. The rest had been overwritten on a 30-day loop. But 14 months covers the killings of Marlene Hostler and Carol May Tilley.
What's on the footage?
What's on the footage is Wendell Krauss on the morning of June 23, 22, arriving at the funeral home at 4:47 in the morning, 3 hours before his usual time, carrying a small canvas bag.
What's in the bag?
You can't see. The bag is opaque, but here's the other thing Mendelsohn found. Surveillance still from a Sunoco 6 miles from Carol May Tilley's house. Time-stamped 11:47 in the evening on June 22, 22, the night before Carol May was found dead.
And Krauss had alibied where?
He had told the police, when interviewed about Carol May, that he had been home with the flu that night. His wife had backed him up.
But there he is.
There he is, pumping gas, 6 miles from Carol May's house, 4 hours before he arrives at the funeral home with a canvas bag.
Marcus, the timeline on the killing itself, how did he do it physically? Walk me through one of them.
Best reconstruction is for Marlene, because we have the most evidence. Mendelsohn believes Krauss arrived at her house in the late evening. He had been there before. He had driven her to the notary in February of that year. He had been to her house twice for what he called administrative paperwork on Rich's prepaid contract. Marlene would have let him in.
He's a familiar man.
He's the most familiar man in town. He sits with her in the front room. He may have brought coffee. He may have brought paperwork. The physical evidence at the scene, and we should be clear, the scene was processed nearly a year late, after exhumation, suggested she was in the recliner when she was injected. Behind the left ear, into the hairline. A trained funeral director can hit that site by feel. Embalmers do it routinely.
How long does the potassium take?
At a high enough dose, less than 2 minutes. Cardiac arrhythmia, then arrest. She would have been dead before she registered what had happened.
And then
He sat with her body for a while. We know that because of the coffee cup on the side table. The medical examiner's notes from the second autopsy describe coffee that had been there for hours, but a second cup on the kitchen counter that had been rinsed and put away.
he cleaned up.
He cleaned up after himself in the kitchen. Then he went into her bedroom. He took the elephant off the dresser. He found the silver dollar collection in the heating vent. The recording told him exactly where to look. He let himself out the back door. He drove home.
And the next morning, he sat down at his desk and wrote her obituary.
And mentioned the elephant.
Because he wanted somebody to read it and know.
That is the profiler's read.
That is absolutely the profiler's read. This is a man whose whole life is grief. He runs the funeral home, he runs the support group, he writes the obituaries, and who has decided he wants to be the author of grief, not just the manager of it. The killings give him control of the narrative. The shelf gives him a private archive. The obituaries are the public version of the same archive. He's signing his work, and nobody can read the signature.
Until Erin Hostler reads it on a plane and recognizes her aunt's elephant.
That elephant ended his career.
So, July 11th, 24. Mendelsohn and 4 troopers go to Krauss Memorial at 7:30 in the morning. Wendell is in the back office. He sees them through the window. He does not run. He does not say anything. He puts on his jacket. He walks out and meets them at the front door.
What does he say?
He says, quote, "I assume you're here about the binder."
He says that on tape?
He says that on the body camera of Trooper Daniel Hoke, who was the second man through the door. 11 words. Then he doesn't speak again for 13 hours.
He didn't lawyer up?
He waited until 13 hours into custody and then asked for an attorney. By that point, Mendelsohn had already executed the search warrant on the funeral home and recovered the locked cabinet, the recordings, and the binder.
Did he ever talk?
He gave one statement, 2 days later, with his attorney present, in the presence of Mendelsohn and an assistant district attorney. I want to play a piece of it.
These were old women whose husbands had left them with nothing to do. I gave them somewhere to be on a Tuesday night. I sat with them. I drove them 3 hours each way to Allentown because nobody else would. You want to talk about who took advantage of whom?
Are you kidding me?
That's the only statement he gave. He stayed silent in court. His defense ran on technical challenges to the chain of custody on the exhumations. The jury was out for 9 hours, convicted on 5 counts of first-degree murder, March 26, sentenced to life without the possibility of parole.
Marcus, he reframed himself as the victim of grieving widows who needed rides.
He did, which is, for what it's worth, completely consistent with the personality profile of a man who runs a 19-year support group as a hunting ground.
Yeah, that's narcissistic injury talking. He cannot tolerate the framing that he is a predator, so he flips it. He's the long-suffering caretaker put upon by the inconvenient elderly. It's grotesque, but it's textbook.
Christy, before we wrap, I want to walk back through the suspect board one more time, because I think this is a case where the listener at home should be able to see how we got there.
Do it.
Suspect 1, Tessa Wendt, the home health aide, cleared on timeline, cleared on motive, cleared on contact, only ever met 2 of the 5, profile didn't fit. The state police lost 8 months on her, and that cost Bricker Falls her career and possibly cost the case its 6th victim. Because in that window, Krause was working a 6th woman through the notary process. Mendelsohn believes a member of the Quiet Hours group named Lorraine Cheswick was on his list and was 3 months from a will update when the arrest happened.
He would have killed her.
He would have killed her.
So Tessa's not just a red herring, she is a red herring that nearly cost a life.
Yes. Suspect 2, Dr. Howard Lemke, the medical examiner. Cleared. System failure, not a co-conspirator. He was the man who broke the case open at the exhumation.
Not a perpetrator. A man who got it wrong and then got it right.
Suspect 3, family members of the victims. Cleared. None of them benefited financially. Most lived out of state. That was the entire reason Krause picked their relatives in the first place.
He picked women whose families wouldn't be the ones asking questions.
He picked women whose families wouldn't be in town. Erin Hostler was the exception. Erin lived in Rochester. But Erin was an ICU nurse who knew what to listen for, and Erin had the conversation with her aunt about the bruise, and Erin read the obituary on a plane.
If Erin had been an accountant in Phoenix, this case never opens.
That is the chilling thing. Suspect 4, Wendell Krause, funeral director, founder of the support group, personal representative or beneficiary on 5 wills, recorded every meeting, drove every victim 3 hours to a notary, embalmed 4 of the 5 bodies himself, wrote every obituary, kept a locked cabinet of personal items, pumped gas 6 miles from Carol May Tilley's house at 11:47 in the evening on the night before her death, while claiming to be home with the flu.
Found.
Found.
Marcus, can I ask you something procedural? When you were working homicide, how often did the killer turn out to be the most institutionally trusted man in the victim's life?
Often. Almost always, when the victim is elderly, the pattern in elder homicide is overwhelmingly intimate or trusted contact. Spouse, child, caregiver, neighbor, clergy, stranger murders of elderly people are statistically rare. When somebody is killed in their own home, in their 70s, you start with the people who were allowed in.
And in Bricker Falls, the people who were allowed in were the people who had buried their husbands.
Yes.
Christy thought I'd say something about that.
What's your read?
My read is that this case is about the architecture of trust in small towns. Wendell Krause didn't kill these women because he was a brilliant criminal. He killed them because the institutions of Bricker Falls were structured in a way where one man could occupy 3 positions of grief: the funeral home, the support group, the obituary writer, and nobody ever sat back and asked whether one human being should hold all 3.
3 jobs, 3 checkpoints, all the same man.
All the same man. He wasn't sneaking around. He drove a black pickup truck. He pumped gas at the local Sunoco. He arrived at appointments early. He carried a thermos. He waited in lobbies. The murders took place in plain sight because the structure of the town allowed them to.
And the medical examiner's office, and the notary in Allentown, and the church basement, and the weekly newspaper, all signed off on a story Wendell Krause wrote for himself.
He was the only one writing.
One last thing I want to put on the record, and it's about the recordings. Mendelssohn's team logged about 1,100 hours of quiet hours audio. Most of it is what you'd expect: women talking about their husbands, the food at the wake, the hospital bills, what it's like to sleep alone for the first time in 50 years.
So the murder weapon and the grief archive are the same archive.
Same archive, same percolator coffee urn hissing in the background of every tape,
You hear that hiss on every recording?
on every one.
God, that's the soundtrack of the whole thing.
That hiss runs underneath 19 years of trust. 5 women sat in that room and listened to it and thought they were safe. The man recording them was making a list.
Marcus, where are the recordings now?
Sealed. Pennsylvania State Police evidence vault. Some have been released to family members on request. Erin Hostler asked for the tapes that included her aunt's voice. She got 'em. She told a reporter for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette in 26 that she has not been able to listen to them yet.
I don't blame her.
She said, and I'll quote, "I want her voice back, but not from that room."
Yeah. Can we play one more piece of audio? Erin spoke at the sentencing hearing.
She did. I want to play it. Marlene Hostler had no children, no siblings still living, and the only family member who could speak for her in that courtroom was her niece. Erin spoke for 2 minutes. This is the part I keep coming back to.
My aunt was 8 months a widow. She had just decided she was going to start cooking for one. She had bought herself a small saucepan. We had talked on the phone the week before about whether you can plant tomatoes in a county that gets frost in May. She told me she was finally ready. She was finally ready. And a man she trusted from a folding chair in a basement decided she was a number on a list.
She was finally ready.
She was finally ready. And we should say her name one more time before we end this episode. Marlene Hostler, 71 years old, retired elementary school librarian, Bricker Falls Elementary, 34 years. Aunt to Erin Hostler, who would not stop calling.
Doris Albright, 68.
Eugenia Polk, 74.
Ruth Connaught, 70.
Carol May Tilley, 72.
5 women, 1 basement, 1 man.
One man, in prison for the rest of his life. Pennsylvania State Correctional Institution at Fayette. Wendell Krause, 54 when arrested, now 56. He will die there. He has filed 2 appeals so far, both denied.
He's still writing letters?
He sends letters to the warden, long ones. Mendelssohn said in a follow-up interview that they're written in the same neat ballpoint as the binder, and they are mostly about the prison library catalog.
Of course they are. He needs a project. A man like him cannot tolerate not having an archive.
He cannot.
What happened to the Quiet Hours group?
Bricker Falls Methodist suspended it the day Krause was arrested. They tried to restart it under a different facilitator about a year later. 6 members, all from the original group, came back. Estelle Barbarossa was one of them, the 81-year-old with the photocopies. She is now 83 and runs the meeting.
No coffee urn?
No coffee urn. They serve tea now.
Good for Estelle.
Good for Estelle.
One more question. The funeral home itself.
Krause Memorial closed in August 24. The county had to bring in an outside contractor from Greensburg to handle services for almost a year. The building sat empty until 26. It's now I think the listing called it a community arts center. The basement, which was where the body intake was, has been sealed.
3 generations of one family burying a town, and it ends with 1 man and a locked cabinet.
It ends with 1 man and 5 women whose names should have been read in the obituaries that an honest neighbor wrote, not a man who'd been signing his work since he picked them.
5 women in folding chairs, finally ready, and a man at the head of the circle making a list.
Convicted, life without parole, and as closed as a case like this gets.
Next week, we're sitting with someone the world stopped noticing, a person whose absence didn't make a sound until somebody finally listened. I don't know yet what to say about it, but I want you with us when we try, so make sure you're following the show. I'll see you then.